As the U.S. financial crisis has faded, we have a new concern to worry about, all the pundits tell us, and that is the collapse of sovereign debt in many countries around the world. Our guest today, MARC FABER, writes the Gloom, Boom, and Doom report. MARC, you're worrying about this as well. Where and what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, sovereign debt default throughout history has been very common. For centuries, sovereign states have defaulted on their obligations. Usually it happens because they borrow too much and just can't pay, and then they inflate and things don't turn out well, and then they default, like Latin America in the 80s and 90s. Many countries defaulted. Now, I believe that the next country that is very vulnerable would be, say, Japan or the United States, and also in Europe. Within the EU, we have the so-called PIGS, in other words, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece and Spain. And these are countries that are quite vulnerable.
So what happens if one of the pigs says one
Well,
day?
before they default, usually they'll print money. And so they issue more and more debt, and they monetize, and then you get into high inflation rates, and that doesn't solve the problem. And then there's a huge financial reform where you just cross zeros off banknotes, and then you reissue new banknotes and so forth.
So what is it going to do to the world if some of the pigs roll over?
Well, I mean, I think it could weaken the euro. I mean, I'm not optimistic about the US dollar, but when I look at other currencies, they're not much better. And I spend a lot of time traveling. I think at the present time, actually, the price level in the US is reasonable compared to, say, the Eurozone. And so if there are problems in the Eurozone with Greece, Spain, Portugal, and so forth, what we could see is weakness in the euro, or maybe even the euro falling apart.
And coming back to what you said at the beginning, do you seriously think there's a chance that Japan or the U.S. is going to default?
Well, I think based on historical precedents, it's very likely they will. Not tomorrow, and before they do, they'll print money like crazy, in other words, monetize the debt. But eventually, I think it's quite clear that the US will default, or that they can't keep their obligations, say that Medicare has to be cut down, Medicaid cut down, Social Security recipients will get less money, or people will have to pay more tax. In either way, something will happen.
And assuming we default, what happens to society? Is it hunting squirrels in the park, barter system?
Well, usually before countries default, they'll print money, then you have hyperinflation, and that destroys essentially the middle class and the working class and benefits, say, I mean, I don't want